to all our wonderful viewers. Jesus Christ is Lord and still the answer to all our problems. We're living in challenging but exciting times. This world is going at a terrific pace that makes it difficult for many people to cope. In the midst of all the excitement and hurry, we must not lose sight of two important things that God has given to every human being. Number one, their time, and secondly, opportunity. We have only one life to live. When this life is over, we have to give an account to God, our Creator, for the life we live on earth and the contributions we made as we sought to be agents of change. Viewers, keep your eyes on the Lord Jesus Christ. He is the author and finisher of our faith. Welcome. God bless you. God bless beautiful Guyana.
We've established the fact time and time again that Guyana is a blessed nation, and it is a nation that is filled with promise. The human resource probably is the greatest resource that any nation could have. We could have, for example, resources of gold, diamond, bauxite, oil, marine life. But if we don't have the human capacity to manage and really to organize and to really bring the resources together for the betterment of a nation, we still will not be productive. We still will not enjoy what God has given to us. So people are still careless in the way they operate, in the way they conduct business, in the way they do life. I think this jejune approach or this simplistic approach to living has to change, and we need to be more rational in our thinking and in our operations. And I'm saying all of that against the background that the fatal road accidents that we've seen rising again. Yes, just yesterday, 4 persons one time died. We don't know those persons who died, what skill set that they had, what kind of information they could bring to the nation for transformation. And so we have this jejune again approach in how we live and how we think. You must know that if you're speeding excessively, if any mistake happens, you will die. And so it is this whole thing about rational thinking. I saw also somebody placed on Facebook this thing that is called TikTok. The horn blowing, and when you look at many cities, you would have seen quiet and the people are in their buildings. And when we reached the Georgetown border market, it was a blast, and so they drew parallel, people partying and sporting and so on. And so the result of all of this is that we are being set back. We are losing lives. COVID is now being rampant in our nation again because people are not adhering to the basic regulations, the basic rules like wearing your mask, social distancing, adhere to the curfew, and just go out if you have to. But people are finding time to party, to sport, to gang up, and for what? Not for any educational purpose, but just to be loose. And therefore, that kind of approach is really putting our nation on the back foot. And I believe the time has come when we must, and I don't think our people are not capable of understanding or reasoning, but it is just that the whole idea of applying themselves to rational thinking, I think that is so critical at this point in time, because this nation could collapse just because we have people who simply don't care or they're not smart enough to do what is right. Gentlemen.
I'm reminded of Romans 13:10 that says to us, love does no harm to its neighbor. Therefore, love is the fulfillment of the law. And individually, there are persons who believe that the coronavirus cannot harm them individually. But I just want to make a call for love. Even if you're of this perception, maybe we could consider taking more precautions out of love so that we don't harm our neighbors. Because there's some persons, as mighty as some people might perceive themselves to be, there are other persons who are not as strong, who are vulnerable, who are susceptible. And we can't be selfish in how we take our precautions or govern ourselves. So even if you believe, I'm making a call, a plea, even if you believe, you know what, you use the right medication or medicines, you eat healthy food, and you don't need to worry about corona, please be considerate of those around you who may not be so strong, who may not be so able to withstand the effects of being infected by the virus. Love does no harm to its neighbor.
Well, Joshua, I am so happy for your comment about love. It is you who opened my eyes to a reality that I didn't know existed last week. When you said there were people who thought that the coronavirus was a political gimmick. Or words to that, that was my takeaway. Listen, during this honeymoon period of our new government, we could hardly expect, or we don't want to have these kinds of disastrous happenings during this period. And not only during this period, ever. Dr. Hudson spoke about the reckless use of our roadways and the excessive speeds that we are traveling with. Not only that, we have a nation to build. And our most important resource is not the oil or agriculture, but the human resource. If you live in a generational home, that is what I mean by that. You have young people and you have old people like me in the home, young people going back and forth, and then you might have older people, me living in the home, like great grandparents and all those kinds of things. If you don't love yourself, think about your parents and your grandparents. Because when you come back from wherever you have gone, if your body might have been able to fight off the virus, but you make those around you that you love, you make them susceptible, you put them in harm's way. And so we are appealing, do not put your loved ones in harm's way. Some people have a death wish kind of approach. And I have been told, and I don't know, it's just because of the time of the curfew, that around the city you have large gatherings of people who practice no social distancing, who wear no face masks, and they just have a jolly old good time way after hours. We have to pull this thing back. Yesterday, we're recording on Thursday. Wednesday, 623 have tested positive. We can't allow this thing to go. We shouldn't allow this thing to go further. 600. This is serious. And now you have a situation where a senior minister of government has tested positive. Our prayers are with you, sir, and your family. We have to protect our valuable assets. Please take care of yourselves. This is not a gimmick. This virus is operating worldwide. Dr. Lee, you made some observation off here. Could you repeat them so I mean, let people know that this is not a joke, it's for real.
Um, yes, thanks, Bishop. You know, I made some observation concerning how we view it, and you touch on large gathering, people now wearing masks and all of that. And but what is of concern is that quite a number of persons are asymptomatic, which means that they don't display high temperatures, the coughing and all of that. And they are the persons who carry the symptoms, but it's not displayed. The other issue is that I don't know how long the testing takes for someone to be given a result. So that you test today, I don't know how long after. But the trouble in that is if that person is positive and the test result takes quite a while to be revealed, that person, because of careless behavior, might be infecting other persons. So it comes back to the point of the importance of us keeping social distance, 6 feet apart, wearing masks and all of that. And what has happened that we have noticed around the world is that some of the countries that have opened, for example, New Zealand celebrated, I think, 100+ days without an infection, but they have discovered today, Harold, quite recently, that persons are or persons were detected to have been infected by it. So the call for us here, our population is less than 700 and something thousand, less than 1 million persons. And if we are going to develop, okay, Dr. Hudson mentioned carelessness on the road, but COVID, we, in a short space of time, we have moved from a few hundred, now we have gone way over 600. So we need to be extra careful about what we do. You know, I've noticed that since the partial opening, and persons have gone back to the creek. When you pass, you see the large numbers of persons who are just enjoying themselves without face masks. I'm not talking about persons in the water in the creek. I'm talking about persons who are by the side of the road, persons who are under those benab, just having a jolly old time, jolly good time, not wearing face masks. And this number is frightening to me. I mean, 600 plus, it might look like a small number when you compare the thousands in other countries, but our population is small and we need to develop this nation. So persons need to exercise caution in whatever we do.
I want to say it may sound as if we are repeating ourselves, but I get the impression that as a people, we lost our conscience, we lost our compassion, because these are things we've been hearing over and over. And I ask, what is blinding us? What is preventing us from doing and being? Why we don't recognize that by putting ourselves at risk, we put so many others at risk? Why we don't recognize that our human capital is our most significant asset, more than the oil, more than the gold, more than the diamond? What is preventing us from seeing that? What is preventing us from preserving that human capital in spite of its ethnicity, because of how valuable it is? Why can't we recognize that we have a small population, and for us to maximize the use of our human capital, we need to first consolidate what we have as a people and build upon what we have? And I get the impression that sometimes the whole issue is selfishness. The whole issue is a narrow-minded thinking. And the whole issue is the inability to internalize the reality of the issue and to make some objective decisions. And I am praying that we don't need an accident to jolt our spirit. I pray that we don't need an the doubling of the deaths for us to wake up and jump. I don't think we need that. I think before, and God forbid that any of those things ever happen, that we can come to a place of making objective quality decisions by saying to ourselves, first to ourselves and then to our neighbors, no, I'm not going there. No, I'm not going to do that. No, we are not going to get involved in that. No, no, we're not. We are not. No. And while it might be hard, I think as a people we can. And I pray we do.
You know, Reverend Asano, what is of concern also to me, I mean, if we look at the tiers of our medical response, I mean, in the communities, you have the community center, then the regional hospital, then the Georgetown Hospital, and, you know, the private hospital. I think the Georgetown Hospital and some of the private hospitals might be the only ones that are capable of dealing with all aspects of sicknesses, disease, and all of that. But the point I want to make is that apart from COVID, or even with COVID, persons are still being affected, infected by other, the common disease that we are accustomed to. Now, the hospital or the healthcare system has a difficulty in dealing with all of those issues. And if you put COVID on top of that, you are really overwhelming, or you know, persons by their irresponsible act will really overwhelm the healthcare system that is barely dealing and coping with all the other, whether it's heart disease, diabetes, and all of that. So we are going to put the healthcare system under tremendous pressure. Look at the far-flung areas where it's increasing. I mean, they don't have a regional hospital. They have health centers. Yes, they have doctors and all of that. So persons by their irresponsible action can be put in an already stressed healthcare system under greater pressure. And you know what's going to happen, God forbid, is that it's going to create a situation here now where the medical profession may have to be very selective in who and what they treat. But everybody needs to be attended to. So the more responsible we become, I am sure that we're going to reduce the cases of infection, okay, and so that the healthcare system can really deal with emergencies rather than have to deal with cases because of persons' irresponsible behavior.
And I agree with you partially.
And brethren, why next month is September?
Correct.
We have someone with several of you are teachers. I mean, even you, Dr. Lee, you taught at some time in your career. But Dr. Marcel, what do we need to do? What kinds of considerations we need to make before school is reopened?
Well, I think we really need to have a total assessment of what is happening, and this assessment can't be done by the Ministry of Education alone. And I think the Honorable Minister Prem Manichan has been working assiduously with the other organizations like the Ministry of Health and the organizations that have the skill set and the know-how. Children are not like adults. You could tell them about social distancing and so on. And so when you have children of different categories like nursery and primary and so on, you have to take all those things into consideration. For you to really reopen school, there's only one consideration that we must take. The disease has to be brought down to its minimum, because you're dealing with children. And the thing is, we're not dealing with 15 and 22. We're talking about some 150,000 plus children. And if you put them in an environment like that, you could recognize the implications of that. They will be susceptible because they tend more to mix and to mingle. So and the other thing is in terms of if we're going to reopen school, and we've had that discussion, we have to utilize the technology, and that will be in place. We have to utilize the technology and maybe have pre-packages and send to children, because we cannot afford not to have children in school also or having access to education. It's just not really 1 year, and there's a gap there. But in terms of reopening of school, if that is going to happen, and lots of the children will have to commute and so on, it means that the virus would have had to be brought down to its minimal. And so what is actually happening now in terms of how people are behaving, it's putting a dark cloud in terms of the actual children coming out and be in the classroom. So for now, it looks as though it might be later on, close to the end of the year or the new year, for the reopening of school, because we cannot release children in a classroom setting where we still have people. And let us take it for Region 1. You could imagine if you were to attempt to open a school in Region 7 and 9, for example, where the numbers are high, the entire school will be infected or affected, and teachers. So there's only one major consideration right now, and that is to bring the coronavirus down to its minimum.
Well, you know,
I agree with you. And the other issue, Dr. Watson, that you're aware of is the classrooms that have large numbers. So you have schools that are, well, overpopulated, if I may say. So it's important to bring it down, because you have large number of children who, if they sit in the classroom, they can't really maintain social distancing, because there's hundreds of students, the classrooms are, so you know the problem is compounded there.
Bishop,
what is the point I wanted to make?
Bishop, it is you who I got this statement from. You will never knowingly put anyone at risk. And I think that we must become conscious of that statement. It reminds me of the scripture in Matthew that Jesus was speaking, ask and it shall be given, seek. But at the bottom of that statement, he says, whatsoever you wish for men to do to you, do also to them. And so it is a sense of responsibility. I love that scripture because it speaks about blessing, and when you call upon God, God will give, and God will minister, God will answer. But right in the middle of that, it says, whatsoever you wish for, do it to others. So let us not knowingly, we should not, there's a sense of responsibility, put anyone at risk.
Well, even as we talk about this and we think about these issues, I think about the business community. These men and women, they have invested their hard-earned resources, and they need an opportunity to make a turn or to receive something on their investment. How do we balance these? Gentlemen, we just have about 3 minutes. How do we balance these objectives? Business community, they have a right to earn, as against if that happens, you have the opening up. You don't have control over this COVID situation. You can have a situation, you already have a tendency of people not wanting to submit to the recommendations and the instructions of the health officials. How do we get out of this?
Bishop, I think the reopening, or how we move forward, should be driven first and foremost by professional medical advice, and policies and procedures and regulations that are normally given by the political directorate should be formulated based on professional medical advice, and that also should be applicable to the business community. I agree they need to have returns on their investment, but we need to be guided by professional medical advice.
I have a quick one too. I believe we're living in a hostile environment, and I heard this from you again. Excuse me quoting you so many times. Visionary leadership. Clearly, things are not regular, they're not the same. So we must find a way to be creative. And we just have to find a way to be creative to sell. Online, structured time, the distancing, whatever. I don't have all the ideas, but we need to be creative. We can't think of it in the usual way.
Bishop, if I could add quickly, in terms of the people still got to, I mean, I think we have plans. The plans might not be the most excellent, but we have plans, but people are still not adhering to those plans, adhering to what they've been told to do. And so what do we do in those kinds of situations?
This issue is one where we're adding our voices to the side of the professionals who are saying they're the watchdogs, they're the ones watching over the growth of this nation, the health of this nation. They're the ones, they have the information dealing with the state of this virus, not only in the city or not only in Region 4, but they have a picture of what's happening in all the regions. And we are making an appeal to all of us. Whether you believe in this thing or not, whether you believe it exists, we are making an appeal to you that based on the best science, not only in this country, but around the world, there is a virus called the coronavirus. And our best, from all the information we have, the best way for us to fight against this thing is to wear a face mask, practice social distancing, and sanitize. You know, your hands, your feet, sanitize. And if you could stay at home, better. But please, whether you're a cane cutter or pharmacist, whether you dig gutters or you're an educator, whatever you do, please stay safe. Together we have to fight this virus. From the set of choices, God bless you. We'll see you next week.
I'm Celestia on behalf of the set, reminding you that your whole life is the sum of your choices. God bless you.